If you actually take a while and think about it, we have this tendency and minor obsession to dichotomize our perspective on things, our perspective of the outcomes and consequences of the events that happen in our lives. We love putting things into yes or no, into one or two, into happy or sad, into presence or absence, to gain or loss, and sometimes it might not even be pure dichotomies. It could also be some categories, some discrete categories. But will it make sense now if I tell you that you're setting yourself up for disappointment and despair if you have these self-imposed constraints on how you should feel based on these categories that you have set up yourself? Because the presence or absence of one or the other dichotomy or category is obvious and glaring, because there are strong delineations and boundaries in between each outcome that you've already dictated yourself what you should feel if ever this event happens. But that's not really what will give us the best learning outcome. You would argue, and I'd agree slightly, but let's dissect it. And I'm going to use a pretty broad example. Adibs, what about an exam? An exam is pass or fail. Okay, think about it. When you hear pass or fail, you'd be lying if you said that you didn't already premediate your emotions based on those two categories. If you pass, you're happy. If you fail, you're sad. Can't you see how narrow we have allowed ourselves to feel on something? How narrow we have allowed ourselves to perceive something? Because there is, we have left no room, no room to analyze or to reflect or to even improve on either outcome. Let's say you pass the exam. Is happiness the only emotion you should feel? Isn't that getting too complacent on the result? Maybe, yes, you passed, but maybe you passed just because you were maybe guessing, or maybe because the words were familiar and you were just going off on um, recall instead of concept, right? And um, when you fail, you're instantly sad, but you fail to analyze factors that may could have hindered you from getting a passing score, quote unquote. Maybe the question style was different, but you have the concept in your grasp. Maybe some external confounding factor that day just so happened. But do you get my point? There is a lot of things to learn from something instead of it just being so discrete that we are limiting ourselves on how to feel about something just because we want to make this self imposed constraint in the first place. But I think you'd be tempted to argue, but Deeps, is it having discrete categories give us some form of direction? It gives us some form of a motivation to strive for what we think will give us the best emotion at the moment. To some degree, yes, it's okay to like plan maybe to have this premediated plan as to what you want to achieve and what you want to um, strive for. But as far as you at the moment is concerned, you shouldn't really try to predict what you'll feel in the future by imposing these dichotomies right off the bat. The emotions of that you'll feel because of the outcome or the consequences is for you to feel when you're already facing that that event, or that when the time comes you'll eventually have to face it yourself, or when it's time to face it yourself. So it's more of us knowing that we are more than capable to adapt to that specific consequence or specific outcome. It's not that we're trying to make ourselves delusional or trying to evade from something. We're just supposed to strive for us to be unshakable, because if you have discrete outcomes, those outcomes are ultimatums. They're just either this or either this or that. And living a life of ultimatums is a challenging one, because there's no guarantee that you might get one or the other. The only guarantee that you have right now is reassuring yourself that you will be able to tackle whatever's in front of you, free from any self imposed constraints on how to feel about that thing in the first place. Let me use another example. I'm a med student, and the end goal is being a doctor, or the most immediate goal right now is of course graduating. It is of course my goal to graduate. It is the foremost direction of my life right now, to graduate medicine so that I could be able to practice. And for me to be able to graduate medicine, I have to pass these exams. But I have failed a lot of exams throughout my life. And ever since I've adopted this kind of thinking, failing isn't as bad as it used to be. Because failing presents itself as an opportunity to be of a teaching point to us, right? So when I'm preparing for an exam, I don't have any expectations on what I'd get at all. Even if I've prepared so hard for an exam, I'm still entertaining the possibility that I'm going to fail. And I'm not dictating to myself that I don't want to fail. I'm not dictating to myself that I'll be so sad if I fail. I'm not dichotomizing off the bat. I'm recognizing that there is a very equally as possible possibility that I might fail. So that if ever I do fail, it won't be as much of a problem as it would be if I was hoping to pass at the offset. Like, sure, passing is at the back of your head your goal, but entertain the possibility of as well of it not happening. So what happens? What goes through my mind when I fail an exam? I acknowledge that I failed, first and foremost. It's it's the acknowledgement of what happened is what's going to roll the ball for you. So I acknowledge that I failed. I now try to see why I failed. Could there be any factors or any um, external confounding factors that might have contributed for this to not reach the minimum passing score? If I can't really pinpoint that, I move on to the next question. How could this experience be of use to me? So maybe I failed because of something I did last night. So maybe I could improve on what I did last night so that in the next exam I could perform better. Um, or maybe I could have done something better in terms of preparation, in terms of planning, etc. Do I feel sad about it at all? Not anymore, nor should I, because there's no use for me to feel despair about an outcome that has already happened. So my obligation as of the moment to myself is now take the outcome that I cannot change and see what I can make from it. And since I did not set any dichotomies for myself, failing isn't a sad experience. It's just an experience. It's just an experience that was equally as possible as passing the exam. And that has got me through a lot of, it has veered me away from a burnout, because burnout is a very strong possibility in whatever field you are. As long as you are trying to strive for something, burnout is a real threat. And for me as a student at this point in my life so far, because I'm not entirely sure how hard it is in other fields, but in my experience right now, at this point, um, it's really tempting to be burnt out sometimes if I let these failures get to my head. So the solution, let nothing get into your head. Approach things with the reverence that it's presenting itself to you in such a way that it has something to teach you, that it has something to offer to you in the long run. There is a difference between not caring and seeing how it could be of use to you. Because not caring is ignorant to the fact that there is still room for improvement. But if you just see how an experience could be of use to you, then it will be a much more pleasant experience. Anything bad that might happen to you, or anything that is not does not fit your ideal situation, it wouldn't be as bad, because you don't have any self-imposed constraints on what you should feel. Because what you should feel is the sense that you are able to adapt to that certain thing. No matter what is being presented to you, there should be no premeditated um, emotions or predictated emotions. So I'll probably expound more on this in future entries. But I hope you got my point. There's more to just one or two. There's more to just A and B. It's an infinite number of possibilities, infinite number of perspectives, and it's up to you to handpick them, hand pluck them one by one, compile them, and make them into such a beautiful or such a efficient experience for you. Because that's an obligation to yourself, and an obligation, um, or your respect, you showing respect to time, because time has no obligation to stop for anyone. It's just flowing, and whatever happens as time goes by, it is up to you to perceive them, and it's your job to perceive it well. So I'll talk to you in the next one.